All right, we're going to ask Beth to come and share her story. Before she does, I'm just going to make a confession. I had scoured the internet, scoured YouTube, and had a video testimony ready for tonight. And come to find out there had been a communication breakdown somewhere along the line, but that's okay. She's here tonight, and we're going to let her come, or we're going to invite her to come, rather, not a letter. We're going to allow her, there I said it again. We're going to ask her to come, there, that's better, to come and share her story and tell us what God has done in her life. Come on, Beth, share what you got.
Hi, I am Beth Wright. I am a believer, lover, follower of Jesus Christ. I was listening to the songs that you guys were singing earlier, and that God was always with me in everything. Even there was times in my life when I couldn't feel it. He was always there. I see that now, because there's only one rhyme or reason why I'm here and why I'm sober today, and that is not anything that I've done. It is all God, right? So I am Beth Wright. I was born in 1974 by two addicts. My mom was an addict. My father was an extreme alcoholic. My dad was very volatile, but my mom was very promiscuous. My parents were divorced by the time I was 4 months old. So I was raised with my mom. I had an older sister who was 5 years older than me. But my mom was my drug dealer from a very, very young age. I remember the first time I was 5 years old, my mom had took me to Dr. Pelly. I don't know if you guys know anything about the Crawford County area. He's an old doctor. He's not there anymore. He delivered me. He was my doctor. And back then, I'm kind of telling my age a little bit, because whenever you left the doctor's office, you had your little pills in a little white envelope. I don't know if anybody remembers those days, but I do. But I remember her actually specifically telling Dr. Pelly that I was a very hyper child. I know now through lots of therapy, fight-flight mode, and when you're stuck in flight-flight mode, even as a child, it kind of mimics hyperness, right? You didn't have talks of ADHD, all that stuff back then, right? So, but I remember her taking me there and asking that doctor's like, something's wrong with my baby girl. She won't sleep, she won't do anything. You give her something. I remember him even laughing. I remember being 5 years old in the doctor's office and laughing at her. I will not give her anything, girl, but I'll give you nerve pills. When we left there, she had her nerve pills, and by the time we got in the car, she had fed me those. That was the first time that I ever remember getting. They were little green pills. They were, I don't know, I know now, I think they were diazepams then. Back then, this is 79, 80s. And from that point on, I got pills every night. My mom was my very first drug dealer, right? Like I said earlier, that my mom was very promiscuous. She had lots of men in and out of the home, in and out. Not only was she very promiscuous, she was very angry all the time. I used to always make a joke all the time, which is not a joke to me anymore, but I used to always tell everybody, when I got later on in life, I'd always say to everybody, you know, when people didn't like me, I was okay, my parents didn't even like me. You know, that's how I felt that my mom was. But my mom had a lot of different men that came in and out of the home all the time. So if you can think it solid, imagine it like how it was like in my childhood. So I was sexually molested when I was 4, when I was 6, and then I was brutally raped when I was 9, and then when I was 19. And when I was 19, I was actually brutally raped by my husband. So, but when you're raised in that kind of environment, you tend to have it. So you feel like that is what you deserve. That is how life is supposed to be, right? But most of the ones that were in that had tormented me were my mom's boyfriends, right? I grew angry, I grew bitter, but I grew still even more hyper, right? My mom still kept feeding me. My sister pretty much raised me. My sister is 5 years older than me. She pretty much raised me when I was 6 years old. Her biological dad, got custody of her. So I was left at home with my mom all the time. That got pretty brutal. Right? Then I was the bad child because my sister was gone, and you know, and I was the one that kept her locked down because now she had to actually take care of a baby. And so at the same time, I remember actually being the first time I ever smoked marijuana, I was 7 years old. By the time I was 8 years old, I was already hustling, learning how to hustle. That's just the kind of environment I grew up in. That's what I was around. That's what I knew, right? So that kind of progressed. When I got into middle school, I learned how to, I don't know if you guys remember those Hit Parade magazines. I learned how to fake my name. My name was Vicki Thompson, what I said my name was. And back then they didn't ask for ID. Whenever you wanted to order them little pills in the back of the magazines, they didn't ask for those IDs, right? So I started ordering those hearts, Black Beauties, White Crosses, and by the time I was in 6th grade, I was the White Cross Queen at Nettle Middle School in Robinson, Illinois. Right? I was Vicki Thompson. They were being shipped directly to my home. My mom used to send me to the grocery store with notes, your pack of cigarettes, stuff, and I collected up all those change, and that's how I made money. I kept all the money that I had left over. She's like, whatever you want, you get some ice cream. You know, she was being nice to me. I kept them and did whatever I needed to do to get by, and I fed my habit, right? This was in 6th grade, you know. So then, by the time I was in high school, I was a devout softball player. I loved softball. I played softball from the time I was 6 years old. I think without softball, I probably would have been in prison way sooner than I was. Without softball and that team that I got to be around, I probably would have been in way worse trouble than at a very young age. I would have been in prison before I was 20. I would have been in prison probably 15, probably. I probably would have ended up in jail without softball. But when I got in high school, I was really hardcore into softball. And I had a team. But by this time, I was living my life like my mother, I guess, right? I dated only elder men. I guess that's what happens when you have sexual trauma. I had daddy issues, I guess some people call it. So I always dated the older men, right? I was probably 15, and I think my high school sweetheart was 27. It wasn't a good dynamic, but guess what? My parents were okay with this. By the time I was 13, I met my biological father, and I actually, when I was 15, I moved in with my dad, right? So I born off my mom, I moved in with my dad, so it was just my dad and my uncle, but my dad's home was no worse than my mom's. Like, my dad's home was just nothing but a party house. He was an alcoholic at the bars every night. By the time I got my driver permit, we had a good dynamic, right? I could, you know, as long as he was an adult, you know, and then when I got my driver's license, I could drive him to the bar, drop him off. Curfew was midnight at that time, so I could the bars closed at midnight at that time, and I just picked my dad up. He was the adult in the car, and I'd drive him home, right? But while he was in the car, I was out partying, I was out drinking. I don't know what I was thinking, but I was out doing wrong. I could have got a DUI at any time, but back then they just didn't. That wasn't how the world was then. Right? But anyway, my uncle, he had wrapped his motorcycle around a tree, and he was living in California, so he came back to live with us. We had to take care of him. He had broke his neck in 2 spots, his back, and everything. He was one of those halos and stuff, so I felt like I was the caregiver. I was taking care of 2 men. You know, one was drunk and one was hung up, right? But so that was my life as an early teen. My dad was a very abusive man. My dad has been married 7 times. I have 7 stepmoms. I have 17 stepbrothers and 14 stepsisters on my dad's side. I'm the oldest out of all of them. I used to have them classified as numbers because I couldn't remember all their names at all times because I was too messed up to remember their names, right? But every one of them still claiming to this day. I have a good rapport with a lot of my stepbrothers and sisters. A lot of them moved away now. But when I was 21, so here I am dating all these older men. My parents are okay with it. My dad's even letting me go stay in the night, you know, stay the weekend in the house. I mean, I didn't have any accountability when I was at my dad's at all. So that just escalated my addiction, right? And the whole time I'm still partying up on the weekends, but in high school I'm going to school, and I'm still going to school because I had to play softball, and I'm still going to games, but every night I'm still partying. I was still that person. I was that girl. And so being around my dad and his volatile relationships, I guess kind of used that, watching my mom getting beat up by her boyfriends, and watching my mom getting mad at me, and then moving in with my dad and watching him beat up all his women and everything. I guess that was just I guess that's how relationships were supposed to go, I guess. I don't know what I was thinking. I look back on it now and I see God in every bit of it, right? He was priming me to build me who I am today. Without these experiences, I would not have the strength that I have in my walk with God. I would not have the strength that I have in my own marriage. Wouldn't be my own, a mother myself. I wouldn't have the strength in that. But when I was 21, well, I got married when I was 19. Got pregnant when I was 19 with my oldest daughter, right? I got married to a very volatile man. If you can think of the worst thing that you've ever seen or heard about that has ever experienced in anybody's marriage, you probably think that and times that by 100, and that's how my marriage was. This man brutally hurt me in ways that it was unimaginable. I stuck around for it for a minute, and then I knew when I got pregnant with my daughter that if I didn't do something, he was going to kill me and he was going to kill that baby. Even though I didn't know what I was going to do with the baby, I had no clue what I was going to do with the baby. I was so scared, but I knew that I didn't want her to die, right? I didn't think I could be a mom. I didn't think I could be a good mom of the way I was raised, but at the same time, there was something inside of me that I knew that I didn't want her to die. I didn't care about me, but I didn't want her to die, right? So I had to get away. So I got emergency 10-year order of protection against him. And just like any other story that you've heard probably on TV and everything, the piece of paper doesn't matter. If they want to hurt you, they're going to get to you. That's what I experienced. Into that story was I ended up 5.5 months pregnant with my daughter, beat up from the head to toe, but I did the unimaginable. I hurt him worse than he hurt me that time. I don't really like talking about that too much because it wasn't one of the brightest moments in my life, but it is part of my story, right? I hurt him in a way where I got arrested and was looking at attempted murder. He didn't die. The man did not die at the time, and I got really angry. I got thrown in jail. I got hurt by a man, and then I still got apprehended, and I got really angry with the world. That was probably the start of my really despising law officers. That I really did not want to any kind of authority. I didn't have any nice choice words to say about it, right? Not every understanding that they're only doing their job, but at the same time, like, they didn't protect me. They didn't do what they needed to do. I didn't have parents to protect me, so I had to rely on law officers to protect me, right? So I got really, really angry from that point in my life. I was already an angry child, but I got more anger. I had more anger built up, right? And then when I was 21, it came out. And it was one of the darkest moments in my life when I found out my dad was a sexual predator. My dad had 32 counts of child molestation on him, and they were all against boys. And you think I had 17 stepbrothers, guys. And that was one of the hardest things I ever experienced in my life because I had people looking at me in my hometown like, oh, he did that to you. Like, you don't see the dynamics. That they didn't know the whole dynamics of it because when something like that happens in small towns, they really take them out of the town, they put them somewhere else, and you don't really, the trial, all that stuff is not even happening in the town. Just kind of, when it's that bad, when it's that drastic. He had 32 counts on him. There was a couple of internet frauds too, so he got moved to another location. So I was stuck in a small town of Robinson, stuck to face the aftermath of what everybody was thinking of my dad. They all knew it happened, but they didn't know the circumstances. Because they, like I said, they moved him out of the town. They didn't put him in that jail, they put him in another jail. Like, they didn't have the courts in that court, like, it was bad. And I remember one of my side jobs that I always had in growing up was probably started in my dad's house. I was a bartender. I would work 40 hours a week at a certain job, and then in the evenings I would bartend. And I remember I had this one guy, his name was Richard Clark, God rest his soul. He was a grumpy old man. But he was always direct and straight to the point. And I remember one night he was looking at me in the bar, and he was so drunk, and he finally looked at me and he says, "So, Beth Ann, did your dad do that crap to you?" I was like, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, I didn't answer him. I just stood there, and I remember just standing there looking at him like, I didn't get mad at him, but it hit me like a ton of bricks that he just said out loud what everybody in this town. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then I got really, I started isolating. I started really like, didn't want to go out in public. I didn't want to go around because I didn't want people, because in a unique way, I loved my dad. It kind of seems funny. I still love my dad. Don't get me wrong. I got really angry with him. I got really mad at him. I got really upset with him, and I've even said some choice words to him that probably shouldn't have been said. But at the same time, like, what God has done in my life, I've learned how to forgive him, right? With that being said, though, that's when the start of more anger, right? Anger, trauma, on top of trauma, on top of trauma, on top of anger, on top of anger, on top of being let down. I'm being let down by everybody. Like, I didn't think that I was worthy of any kind of love. There was never going to be a love for me that was greater than anything. I was destined to live in darkness, right? That's how I felt. That's how I wanted to be. That I was comfortable in that darkness. I was comfortable there. And so I think I went to prison the first time when I was 24. There's kind of a hazy days. I don't know if any of you guys have been. I'm a true addict, right? I dressed myself as the more girl because if it was going to check me out and mess me up, I was doing it and I wanted more. So I had about 4 or 5 years there where I call the hazy days because I don't hardly remember anything. I just checked out. I totally checked out, right? I had a daughter even, and I checked out. My wonderful daughter, she's 32 now, though, but she is a godsend. She is a true survivor, too, warrior, because she had me in all my glory, right? She was my only child for 9 years. I went to prison in between that time, I think when I was 24. Then when I got out of prison after 4 years, I vowed I was never going to use drugs again, never go back. I was never going to do all that, right? I had a boyfriend when I went into prison, but he never got to meet my daughter. He was my boyfriend, and he ended up sticking out all those years with me. Wrote me, sent me money. I don't know why. He was a really good guy, but by the time I got out, prison didn't do anything for me, but it made me learn how to isolate more, how not to get caught, things like that. So I ended up getting married to this man as soon as I got out, and he is a wonderful guy. He ended up blessing me with 2 more children. But by the time when I got out, as soon as I got out of prison, within 4 months I was pregnant. So that was how my son came about. Well, by the time my son was 5 months old, I was back in. I say I was in active addiction for 35 plus years because I don't know when the hooks really hit me. Being dosed when I was a kid for so long, I really don't know when the hooks was into me, but I can tell you by the time I was 9 years old, I was an everyday average smoker. I was popping some kind of pills. I was drinking. I was doing every stuff, right? So by the time I was 30, I had my 3rd child. Just gotten out of prison again. Went back to prison after my son was born. Got out of prison again. The second round, I was only there for like 6 months. I thought I whipped the system that time, right? That time I thought I was going to get it. That time I thought I was going to, I'm going to do this. I'm going to live right for my kids. I'm going to do this. I was missing one key component, though, y'all. I was missing one key component. You guys can probably all know what that is. The love of Jesus Christ. Like, I was trying to do it on my own, and on your own, you cannot do it. You cannot do it on your own. If you have any kind of hurt, habit, or hang-up of any sorts, I'm telling you, there's one person that you can open up the door to, and he's going to see you through it, and he's going to love you through it. He's going to get you to the other side. You just got to trust and believe. Because I didn't trust and believe. I was always a believer of God, but I didn't trust and believe that that I was worthy of His love, right? Everything that I'd been through, cried through, rose through, prayed through, everything. From that point, I still kept falling short, right? I still kept falling flat on my face. I still kept going back to the drugs. Still kept going back to the abuse of life. And then one day I turned around and looked in the mirror, and I was the abuser. My husband then was a really nice guy. He took care of our kids. He did everything, and I was the one abusing him because that's how life was supposed to be. I was emotionally abused, and I wasn't physically abusing him, but I was emotionally tearing him down because I was a miserable, excuse my French, dope, sick woman. dope. I mean, it was bad. It was bad. And when he finally had enough, and he left, then I was stuck to myself. Then I had DCS called in on me. My kids got removed from my home because I tested positive for marijuana because I knew how to swindle the test, to not. I knew how to swindle the test, but I couldn't swindle it away from marijuana because then one day when they walked in and all of a sudden they came up with this hair follicle stuff that kind of blew me away. I was like, what do you mean you want my hair? Like, they hadn't done this prior, and so they removed my children from my home. From that point on, I fell off the deep end. From that point on, I quit smoking marijuana. I have not smoked marijuana since then, and that's been almost 12 years. I have not smoked marijuana since then. For my own heart, I had to quit doing the one thing that took away my heart, I thought. But I went all into everything else. Everything else. I just couldn't find myself. I couldn't find that path that I needed. And then, let's see. That was, I can't remember what year that was. Then I ended up abandoning my kids. I ended up walking away. My ex-husband had them, and I had visitations. I had rights to see my children. I had all that stuff, but I chose drugs over my kids. I literally could not live without the drugs. Even though I was claiming out of my mouth, my kids were my heart, my life, my soul, my everything. I was claiming that, but that was the furthest thing from the truth, right? When I got to the end of my rope was April 23rd, 2016. I just had enough. I had been running, I'd been bouncing around from couch to couch, lost my homes, all that good stuff, and still running from the first husband that brutally, because they don't ever give up. When they're that obsessed, they don't give up. And I was still running from him, still learning to hide from him, still getting beat up by him every time he's seen me. Never once did he ask where his daughter was, though, right? That made me angry. That made me even more angry. But anyway, I got to my rope April 23rd, 2016. That's a whole nother story in itself. And I can tell you how God was there, but that will take another hour to tell you that one because you have to line up all the pieces. But I can tell you that God was there in that story. How Ryan Marie's or why, I don't know, right? My journey started out in Portage, Indiana, where I was stuck in kind of like an abandoned house. And one of my friends that had just left called the law on me because I needed help. By him calling the law on me, that law officer came in, talked to me. He didn't even talk to me 10 minutes. When he finally looked at me, he said, not even good people make bad decisions. And that was, I think, the first moment that I probably had my first God kiss that I felt. Right? That first moment, that angel that comes along, and I remember just sitting there looking at him like, like, what do you mean? Like, he's calling me a good person? I thought it was weird. And I'll never forget, he took me in downtown Chicago to a place called Pacific Garden Mission, where I entered in there, and I was there. It's a homeless shelter. It started out as for men's years ago, and they house men and women now, but it's a very large homeless shelter that has programs within the shelter. So the very first program I ever went into was called the New Day program. That New Day program, here I am, a country girl, with my Harley boots on and all this good stuff in this big city, and they're like, you can't wear jeans, you can't wear boots, and I had to dress like a lady, right? I had to dress like a lady. I'm like, oh my goodness. And they had even a clothing store downstairs that they made you shop. We had devotionals, we had all this good stuff. It was strictly biblical, right? We didn't sit and talk about being an addict or anything like that. We talked about hurts, strongholds, what the Bible says. Like, we did devotions every day. We had a routine. And I think I was there 3 weeks when we had worship every Saturday night, like everybody. There was big church worship there, and the girls if you were in these programs, you had to dress up, you had to show up, you had to be there, you had to be present, you had to sit with your ladies. And they had this one sermon called Processing the Pain. That sermon dropped me to my knees. Everything that Pastor Phil was talking about, everything that I was trying to process, all in one. A whole lifetime of hurt that I was trying to process. It can't be done. I could not do that. But God can. God did. In that moment, I remember going back to my barracks, back in our little dorm. We were separated from the rest of the homeless the homeless shelter. We had our own separate little rooms, and we roomed with people that was in the program. And I remember going back there, and I had this, her name was Lucille. I love her to death. Lucille was just straight from the streets, and she was just raw, and she was always, Beth Ann, what you doing down there? Because I was weeping uncontrollably. God was trying to cleanse me and trying to get me up to my knees, but I just couldn't, at that time I didn't understand it. I didn't know what was going on. From that moment on, I vowed to stay into the Word of the Bible. Even though it didn't even feel good, it didn't feel right, I vowed that day that every day that I was going to talk to God. Every day I was going to talk to God, and whether be reading, I was going to get into devotion. And I just went through the motions of finding God, searching for God, searching, right? And I knew He'd show up eventually, but it all felt so weird. I don't know, when you have lived left for so long in your life, and you start to try to go right, and each step that I was taking in the right direction felt so foreign and so awkward and so weird. I didn't know if I was doing it right. It was like it felt like I was doing everything wrong, because good things were starting to happen. Right? Good things were starting to happen in my life, and even though I didn't have nothing, and I was still homeless, and even though I was still this, I had some peace, and I had the joy in my heart that was unreal, but I couldn't explain it. But at the same time, I'm like, how? And I just kept going through the motions. So anyway, I left. I graduated that program. I met with a friend that was in Corpus Christi, Texas. Her name was Buffy, and Buffy took me in. She was like, you need to get away from your hometown. You need to get away. You don't need to go back there. Come here. And she was a very strong Catholic faith, very strong Catholic faith. That was my first experience in the Catholic Church. I love the Catholics, don't get me wrong, but no wonder they have bad knees, because they're up, down, up, down, up, down. Like, I loved it. It was good. It was a great experience. But at the same time, like, I ended up having to have emergency surgery where I couldn't prove that I was a United States citizen in the state of Texas. So close to the border, I could not prove that I was a United States citizen. I didn't have my ID. I didn't have anything. I was trying to get all that so I could get some insurance, so I could get the surgery, and I just couldn't get it because I couldn't prove. I didn't have nothing. I don't know if anybody's ever been there, but I didn't have anything. And so I ended up going to New Orleans, where I stayed there for a little bit, and then all of a sudden I had my surgery. My best friend of all my life lived in New Orleans, and I lived with her, and trust me, I stayed sober that whole time in New Orleans. How I did it, I have no clue. No clue, because I'm still in my Bible every day, though. I'm still reading. Still doing it, but didn't know what I was doing still. And so about that time, my oldest daughter calls in a frantic. For the first time ever in my life, I heard my oldest daughter tell me, Mom, I need you. Mom, I need you. And I wasn't there for her. She was going through a really hard time. My son-in-law actually had apprehended, and he was looking at probably 20 years. And she didn't know what to do. I just had a new baby. I had a grandson that was only like a year old at the time, and she was in panic. She was in panic, and her and I had been through the trenches together. And I remember, and I was like, I asked her, I said, Diamond Elaine, I said, do you want me to come home? And she screamed in the phone, and she said, no, Mom, I need you sober. I was like, and that still makes me choked up, because she was right. She needed me sober. I was sober, but she knew that if I would have went back there too soon, that I would go right back to the pits of hell again. There was something about my hometown that I could not stay sober for nothing in my hometown. I do not live in Robinson no more. I do not. I had vowed to stay away from Robinson for many years just because of that, because my daughter helped me open my eyes to that, helped me look at my track record, helped me see that what I could and couldn't do, right? So that I made a plan. I ended up going into it's a program. It's called Next Step Foundation in Terre Haute, Indiana. I ended up coming from New Orleans and entering into that program. And in that program there, I had a year sobriety. I was 1 month shy of 1 year when I went into this Next Step program. And I knew that I knew when I entered in there. It's a faith-based program, but I knew that I knew. As soon as I walked in there, God was in that building, and He was going to show me the way, and my life was getting ready to change. Didn't know what it was going to look like, right? What it was the people inside of there, the people that came along and fed the word of Jesus Christ into me, iterated to me that I was not defective, told me that I was worthy, told me that I was enough, right? They showed me tough love in a good way. They gave me structure. They gave me rules. Here I'm 40. I was 42 years old when I went into this program. 42 years old. I was a grandma already, and I was hardcore still in my own self, right? And like that song said earlier, we were saying, I finally surrendered. When I surrendered it all and said, all right, God, do with me whatever you want to do, things just started happening. I can't even explain it, y'all. Some of you guys probably already know what I'm talking about. Like, you just start putting God first, even if it doesn't even feel right, even if it's not feeling normal. You start putting God first. You start getting in that Bible. He starts putting people in place in front of you. That's gonna remother you. It's gonna show you His word. He's gonna show you His God kisses. He's gonna show you the angels that He has for you. I can't explain it. I can't explain it at all. You just start putting God first, and everything just starts falling in place, right? And then I had, through this program, I got the pleasures. She was so intrigued. The executive director was so intrigued by my story. I was getting ready to complete the program. It was only a 90-day program at Next Step Foundation. Came to me, and she looked at me and she said, if you give me 18 to 24 months, I'll change you, give you a better life, I'll show you a better life. I'm like, Miss Dana, this is only a 90-day program. And she says, no, I don't want you to leave, I want you to stay. She said, where do you got to go? Where do you want to go? And I remember just sitting there thinking, like, I don't have nowhere to go. Like, so it was like, I remember just looking at her like, why not? Why not? And she was telling you, and she used me as a guinea pig to learn the science of methamphetamine use, right? And not only did she do that, she also taught me what she was learning, to learn me about myself, to learn why my brain thought the way it did, why I acted the way I did, right? She came along beside me and remothered me. Then I'm telling you, you find some good mentors in your life, and church is the great place to start. Church is the best place to start whenever you can find your mentors. I am April 23rd of this year, I will celebrate 10 years clean, right? I've been a peer recovery coach for 8 years. I work in the trenches. I can't say that I work in the trenches now. I just today passed the baton. I'm actually a supervisor in the organization that I work in now, but I just passed the baton. I've gone into serve 10 counties for the people that I work for now, but I ended up getting a job at Next Step Foundation. There's the one that certified me to become a recovery coach. I was the only solid woman peer recovery coach there for 4 years, and then I got married. I found my husband and got married, and then I moved up north, where I actually worked in a methadone dosing clinic for 2 years up in Gary, Indiana. I moved back a year and a half ago, and now I work for the Wabash Valley Recovery Center. So I have some knowledge in treatment. I have some knowledge in sober living. I have knowledge in now freelancing. We serve 10 counties, and I was going into 4 different jails, 4 county jails in the counties that we serve, and mentoring the girls. Why not? Why not? I was comfortable there. Right? And I'm still am. And I went today to one of my jails and I had to walk in there and tell them I was passing the baton. They cried. They all cried. We're like, you can't leave us, Miss Beth. And I'm sorry. But this one, and I took the lady I was replacing, and I was like, she's going to do just fine. And she did. She did great. I let her run the show and let her do it and everything. But this is what we do. We give back, right? So I always tell all the people that I peer coach, no matter what, you need 1 sponsor, 5 mentors, and 2 spiritual advisors on your emergency dial list at all times, right? Because not everybody's going to be at your beck and call. In early recovery, we understand that. Sponsors need sleep too, and they have families too. So you have mentors. You have other mentors that you can go to, that you can call to. By the time I was like six years clean, I had all my mentors already lined out to when I know which emotion that I was feeling, who I could call and who I couldn't call. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the recovery community, but I have one really good mentor that I just absolutely love. Her name is Izzy. When her early recovery, we kind of went through it together, but in her early recovery, she was still doing work on her. And if I was in a tizzy and I was like, wanted somebody to validate my feelings, she'd be like, I'd call her up and she'd be like, let's go, get a shovel, let's go bury him. Like, like she would just, and I'm like, I can't call her, like, we're gonna catch another felony. Saying like, but I'm telling you, the work that God has done in my life is It's far none. It's the most greatest thing that I've ever done, and it's the greatest love story that I have to tell, right? I knew that in my early 20s that I was, as my mom put it, I was rude, crude, socially unacceptable. Nobody would like me. That's how my mom would put it. So that tape always played in my head. I wasn't worthy. Then I had I had my worst husband that just told me everything about me that I didn't want to know, that wasn't true, but I believed it, right? And then society, how they look at us whenever we're in our active addiction, how they look at us, they told me I wasn't worthy either. The people I would meet on the streets, they told me I wasn't worthy, but there one day I found out I am worthy. I am worthy. I have the greatest thing that lives inside of me. That's Jesus, right? That's Jesus. And I know if he can do for me, he can do for anybody, because if I can get out of the pits of hell, I know anybody can. Because I thought I was a lost cause, but I'm not, right? God has a plan for each and every one of us, and whatever that looks like, we don't know. He still has a plan for me. He ain't done with me yet. I just don't know what it's going to be, how it's going to end, right? But I hope it ends with me somewhere on a beach when I retire. I hope it's somewhere on a beach when I retire. I really do. But until then, I'm going to keep working in the trenches. I'm still going to give back to the same people that are just like me. I'm going to lend a hand. My granddaddy used to always have us say, what are you going to do when you get to the mountaintop? Because, he was always talking about my dope use. Like, what are you going to do when you get to the mountaintop? Because you're going to slide down. He was always saying you're going to slide down there. Now I have him in my head, and what am I going to do when you get to that mountaintop? Well, I'm going to reach down, I'm going to pick up the next person. I'm going to help them up. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. And I have to tell you this, I had to bring in my granddaddy because my granddaddy's actually from Cumberland County. My granddaddy's actually buried in Drummond Cemetery right out here, right down the road. And I come through this town 2 times a year to take my grandma to my grandpa's, to his graveyard. And now when I come through, I have a set of people that I'll be praying for every time I drive through Toledo. And I will be back here. I will be back. Because this is, I'm telling you, the love of God. I felt the love of God as soon as I walked in this door. Presence is known. It's here. It's real. Embrace it. Keep coming back, you guys. And any of you guys that are still in early, some of you guys got your blue chips today. Good for you. Good for you. Get that blue chip as many times as you have to. Get them as many times as you have to. Because these doors are going to be open, and God's arms and heart is always open for you. God will do it for you. You got to surrender it, though. God can do it for you. You just have to say, Jesus, take the wheel. Jesus, take the wheel. And then you have to recognize when you're having that bad day, and you have to be able to claim it. Jesus, it's you. Take the wheel, because I can't drive today. You have to be able to, that's surrendering. That was surrendering for me. When I got in my own head and when I got in my own heart and my own mind that I couldn't do it and I wasn't worthy and I wasn't all that, just Jesus, take the wheel. You drive the bus. I don't care if it's a short bus, but you're driving it. Right? Right? But, so that's my story, y'all. And, I hope to be back.
Let's stand. Had a conversation with someone earlier today about hurts. And I made the comment, I said, hurts hurt. That's why they call them hurts nowadays. And I don't know about you, but I'm glad when I hurt, I got somebody I can run to. Got somebody I can lean on. And, I read in Proverbs that somebody that's untrustworthy is like leaning on a broken stick. You end up stabbing yourself in the hand. He's not a broken stick. He's the rock on which we can stand. And I know that we've heard this statement before too, but when you get to rock bottom, you realize he's the rock at the bottom. I had a conversation last night. When Jesus is all you got, you realize Jesus is all you really ever needed. Amen. I don't know about you, but I'm glad that he's been there for me. And maybe you've never experienced Jesus in any way, shape, or form, but okay. He's waiting. He's patient. He's waiting on you to decide, I'm ready for something more than what this world has given me, because all the world gives me is a false identity. All the world gives me is lies and confusion and hurt. But Jesus has more for me than that. I'm so glad that he does. So if we could, for just a few minutes, I want to pray. I'm going to ask you, if you would, right where you're at, you just begin to talk to Jesus one-on-one. Tell him what's on your heart. You know, sometimes we have to take to Jesus what other people have brought to us. And then we got to hear what Jesus says back to us. Because I guarantee it's going to be different than what you've heard elsewhere. So let's just take these to Jesus right now. Jesus, I thank you. I thank you for these words that we've heard tonight. I thank you that what you've done for one, you can do for another. I thank you what you've done in my life, you can do in somebody else's life. God, in the way you've done it in my life, it may look different in somebody else's, but the end result's the same. You want to wrap your arms around us. You want to draw us closer to you. Lord, my heart may be feeling resistant right now because I'm unfamiliar with what it is that I'm feeling. My mind may scream at me, stop, don't go any further. But Lord, I'm asking you, Lord, don't give up on me. Keep reaching for me. God, because I need a way out. I need a way into something other than what I've known all my life. I need a way out of the hurts. I need a way out of the habits that I've picked up along the way that hide those hurts. God, but the problem is when I lay down that habit, those hurts come creeping back. And Lord, it didn't really do anything but help me cope for a moment. Lord, those hang-ups that are in my life, those things I just can't get over. Lord, I'm asking you to speak into my heart tonight. Help me see the light. Help me to realize that those things that live in darkness are going to die in the light. Let your light shine on my heart. Let your light shine on my mind. Let your light shine on my life. Lord, let tonight be a first step in a brand new direction in my life. Let change occur. I may not even understand it, God, but begin to draw me. Draw me closer. Draw me closer. That Jesus, as we go to small group tonight, I ask you, Lord, as we're there, help us to listen intently. Help us to share earnestly. And help us to be honest with one another. Help us to be honest with you. And God, most importantly, help us all to be honest with ourselves. We've lied to ourselves long enough. We really don't have it all under control. Lord, we're just out of control. Just haven't crashed yet. So I ask you, Jesus, move us closer to you. By your might and by your power we pray. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. If we could, before we go to group, say the serenity prayer together. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace. Taking, as Jesus did, the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it. Trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen.